Titans. Francisco, tú me dices en qué momento empezamos nosotros a ponerlo. Ok, perfecto. Muy buenas tardes a todos. El día de hoy nos encontramos en nuestro tercer Congreso Internacional de la SOPEN, una SOPEN nueva, una SOPEN renovada, una SOPEN mejorada, ¿no? Cómo no, con el apoyo internacional de nuestros queridos amigos y moderadores, miembros de la Sociedad Panamericana de Estudiantes de Neurocirugía y Neurociencias. Con ello me gustaría presentarles e introducirles a nuestro querido y flamante presidente. Él es estudiante de medicina en Paraguay y con él se da el inicio de básicamente esta internacionalidad de la propia sociedad, ¿no? Antes nosotros éramos la sociedad peruana y ahora con Mauricio, con Francisco, con Montserrat, con las otras personas, nuestros otros queridos miembros que están entrando a la sociedad, es que nosotros somos la Sociedad Panamericana y qué bueno que sea Mauricio Guerrero, estudiante de medicina del Paraguay, que sea la persona que se encargue de tener la batuta de nuestro camino. Mauricio, por favor.
Bueno, muchísimas gracias, Aurel. Primero que nada, buenas tardes, noches a todos los que nos están escuchando. Yo sé que en muchos puntos de América Latina puede ser un horario medio distinto, pero creo que el horario no varía más de 2, 3 horas. Bueno, primero que nada, me vuelvo a presentar. Uriel ya le dijo mi nombre, yo soy Mauricio, yo soy actualmente el presidente de esta queridísima sociedad y creo que le vamos a dar el puntapié al primer día de nuestro evento Neurotitans. Sepan que es la tercera oportunidad en la que nosotros realizamos este evento y vamos a ir explicando, o sea, yo les voy a explicar más o menos de qué se trata el evento y quiénes somos. Así como les dijo Uriel, a ver si pasa la presentación. Así como les dijo Uriel, esta sociedad es una sociedad de estudiantes, es una sociedad que se basa básicamente en el estudio de las neurociencias en general, no solamente neurocirugía, sino también neurología y neuropsicología. Y empezó como una idea bastante loca dentro de un grupo de estudiantes peruanos, los cuales lanzaron la idea a nivel internacional en época de pandemia a través de Zoom, y a la cual algunos de nosotros, por casualidades de la vida y prácticamente serendipia pura, nos cruzamos con la iniciativa, así como Francisco, que es de México, así como yo, que soy de Paraguay, y eventualmente quisimos formar parte de una sociedad que realmente busque lo mismo que nosotros buscábamos, que era adentrarnos más en el estudio del cerebro y darle más oportunidades realmente al estudiantado, porque muchas veces en muchos programas de estudio este tipo de cosas no están contempladas. Todos tienen la materia de anatomía, todos tienen histología, todos tienen anatomía patológica, pero nosotros nos dimos cuenta que prácticamente nadie cursa, por ejemplo, neurocirugía dentro de la materia de cirugía. Nadie cursa neuroanatomía como una materia totalmente aparte. Siempre es como un módulo bastante pequeño al que se le da muy poca importancia dentro de la anatomía normal. Por lo cual nosotros nos sumamos a la iniciativa de ellos del Perú desde nuestros respectivos países, ¿verdad? Y esto fue ya hace 3 años. Y desde este año, en el cual a mí me toca tomar la antorcha y tomar la batuta, así como nos hizo Uriel, de la sociedad, nuestro primer paso fue realmente cambiarle la identidad y el nombre de lo que es la sociedad. Porque yo siempre decía, yo soy parte de la SOPEN, yo soy parte de la SOPEN. ¿Y qué es la SOPEN? Y era una sociedad peruana de estudiantes, pero Mauricio, vos sos de Paraguay, no sos peruano. ¿Por qué se llama sociedad peruana? Y luego de 2 años y medio de responder exactamente de la misma forma, la misma pregunta, finalmente nos quedamos con SOPEN, pero nos cambiamos un poquito a lo que sería la Sociedad Panamericana de Estudiantes de Neurocirugía y Neurociencias. ¿Por qué hicimos esto? Y realmente porque por más de que la idea haya nacido en Perú, rápidamente nosotros nos sumamos a la iniciativa desde varios países. Hay gente de Ecuador, hay gente de Colombia, hay gente de México, estoy yo, está Emilia y Gabriel, que somos de Paraguay. Y no solamente desde el punto de vista estudiantil, sino que también nuestros colaboradores en cuanto a mentores, en cuanto a investigación científica, neurocirugía y neurociencias, son de prácticamente todo el mundo. Contactamos con gente de Uruguay, con gente de Brasil, con gente de Paraguay, con gente de Perú, Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Ecuador, cualquier país al que a ustedes se les ocurra que esté dentro de América Latina. Realmente probablemente hayamos contactado por lo menos con una persona de ese país para realizar algún tipo de trabajo o conversar sobre una red estudiantil. Y esta es la posición en la que estamos ahora mismo como Sociedad Panamericana de Estudiantes de Neurocirugía, porque realmente por más de que parezca una nimiedad, el nombre es lo que nos da a nosotros la identidad porque es la forma en la cual nosotros nos presentamos frente al mundo. Entonces, el hecho de haber cambiado de peruana a panamericana realmente para nosotros fue una decisión totalmente unánime y fue algo que lo hicimos sin darle mucha vuelta, porque es un nombre que representa mucho más lo que nosotros somos y lo que nosotros queremos. Ahora, ¿por qué estamos todos nosotros juntos acá? Realmente, como les dije, esta es la tercera vez que nos juntamos haciendo el Neurotitans, pero como sociedad de estudiantes, nosotros buscamos el, a través de la herramienta de la virtualidad, poder acercarle a todo el mundo nuestra información desde Latinoamérica para el mundo y acercar el mundo hacia Latinoamérica en cuanto a neurocirugía y neurociencias. Estos flyers que ustedes ven acá son algunos de los varios eventos que nosotros solemos realizar. Juntamos con varias personalidades dentro de diferentes campos. Por ejemplo, llegamos a hablar, tuvimos el honor de tener al doctor Henry Marsh en una ponencia virtual. Fue la primera ponencia del doctor Henry a nivel mundial dentro de Latinoamérica sobre su libro, el cual habla de sus historias de neurocirugía. Hablamos con el doctor Álvaro Campero, que es una personalidad dentro de la neurocirugía latina, dentro de Argentina también. Hablamos con el doctor Rutziger de Alemania. Vean que nosotros traemos ponentes de donde sea prácticamente. Vino el doctor Giuseppe Lancino a hablar con nosotros de la filosofía del neurocirujano desde Estados Unidos. Vinieron ponentes desde Brasil, desde Colombia, desde Ecuador a hablarnos de su experiencia y cómo realmente es la neurocirugía en sus diferentes países, o la neurología inclusive, que también tenemos un evento que se llama neurología. Esto, ¿para qué nosotros hacemos? Para poder globalizar el conocimiento y acercar a todo ese estudiante que alguna vez pensó, ¿cómo voy a hacer para poder saber todo lo que sabe un residente, para saber todo lo que sabe un jefe de neurocirugía, un jefe de neurología, si realmente dentro de la universidad a mí nadie me enseñó, a mí nadie me dio la oportunidad? Esa es la oportunidad que nosotros queremos darle a todo el mundo dentro de América Latina y por eso hacemos este tipo de eventos en español también. Primero que nada, antes de empezar el evento, queremos agradecer a todas las sociedades. Sepan que este trabajo es un trabajo en conjunto a nivel latino. Nosotros tocamos varias puertas para que nos den el aval académico. Este es un evento meticulosamente organizado, no es que van a ser estudiantes lo que vamos a estar hablando. Si bien hay mucha gente que conoce mucho del tema, siempre da más gusto, siempre es mejor escucharle a los expertos y los expertos vienen propiamente de estas sociedades. Agradecemos a la Sociedad Argentina de Neurocirugía, a la Academia Brasilera de Neurocirugía, a la Asociación Colombiana de Neurocirugía, al Colegio Nacional de Neurocirugía en México, a la Asociación Peruana de Cirugía Vertebral, a la Sociedad Paraguaya de Neurocirugía y a los capítulos estudiantiles de Mission Brain que trabajan desde sus respectivos países en Perú, México y alrededor de América Latina con el doctor Quiñones Hinojosa, tanto en investigación como en la globalización del conocimiento neuroquirúrgico para poder avanzar en la América Latina. Ahora, este año realmente, como les dije, fue el año en el que nosotros cambiamos de identidad, básicamente. Podremos tener nuevo nombre, pero seguimos siendo los mismos, seguimos teniendo las mismas metas. Y para comentarles más o menos un poco de los logros que nosotros vamos teniendo este año, presentamos varios trabajos. Sepan que si ustedes el día de mañana quieren formar parte de esta sociedad, esto es lo que les espera. Si ustedes se ponen la camiseta de la SOPEN, si ustedes le ponen la garra que nosotros pedimos, la presentación de trabajo a nivel internacional es algo a lo que nosotros apuntamos para que el estudiante pueda salir a conocer el mundo, porque tiene un concepto de globalización diferente cuando uno sale de su casa, cuando uno cierra la computadora, se sube a un avión y va a presentar el trabajo de su hospital o de su servicio o de su universidad frente a otras personas, para que sepan que lo que se hace en América Latina realmente no tiene nada que envidiarle al resto del mundo. Por eso nosotros vamos presentando nuestros trabajos como en el Congreso Brasilero de Neurocirugía, ahora en septiembre. Fueron presentados trabajos en el Congreso de Cirugía Neurológica en México en junio pasado. Trabajos presentados en el Congreso Europeo de Neurorehabilitación ahora en octubre. Así que sepan que el día de mañana la convocatoria para ustedes está abierta y estas son las cosas que les esperan si ustedes trabajan bien, si trabajan en forma y si le ponen garra a su trabajo. porque realmente, como dice el dicho, por lo menos en mi país, sarna con gusto no pica. Entonces, trabajar para nosotros realmente, nosotros no le llamamos trabajo, sino que nos gusta realmente lo que hacemos en cuanto a investigación y producción científica. Estos son nuestros miembros, nuestros queridos miembros. Acá está Francisco, llamado Paco, y acá están la gente de Mission Brain. Sepan que Mission Brain es una organización a nivel latino que trabaja con el doctor Quiñones Hinojosa en Mayo Clinic justamente para hacer exactamente lo que nosotros tratamos de hacer también, que es diversificar la neurocirugía de las neurociencias y poder llevar a todo el resto del mundo lo que nosotros vemos. Acá, por ejemplo, Francisco está haciendo presentaciones sobre las manifestaciones neurológicas del COVID en la población mexicana. Obviamente, ¿quién mejor que un mexicano para hablar de México? Muchas veces nosotros los latinos dejamos que gente extranjera, gente de Europa, gente de Estados Unidos tome las riendas de trabajo que realmente nos correspondería más a nosotros que sabemos cuál es la situación dentro de nuestros países, cómo se maneja el sistema, cómo son los pacientes, el esfuerzo que nosotros hacemos por tratarles a nuestros pacientes de la mejor manera posible. ¿Qué más tenemos nosotros este año? Tenemos la publicación de nuestro manual de neurocirugía en conjunto con la Academia Brasilera de Neurocirugía y doctores reconocidos a nivel mundial de toda Latinoamérica, de todo el mundo básicamente, y es un manual que va a ser publicado para estudiantes, escrito por estudiantes y doctores y para residentes de primeros años. Entre más logros de lo que sería el año desde nuestro nuevo nombre, tenemos un capítulo publicado en el manual de neurocirugía de la Academia Brasilera de Neurocirugía para Estudiantes, hecho en portugués para estudiantes brasileños. Y también algo que nos atañe mucho en este evento de hoy es que muchos de nosotros eh, fuimos mentoreados por el doctor Johan Choque. Cuando inició la sociedad, el doctor Johan fue uno de los doctores que más nos apoyó, que más le apoyó a Uriel y le dijo, sí, todo lo que vos decís es posible, cada idea loca que él tuvo, el doctor nunca le dijo que no. Y quien le entrenó al doctor Johan Choque fue el doctor Jukka Hernesniemi, doctor finés, perdón, quien lo entrenó en neurocirugía vascular y quien nos dio el honor a algunos de nosotros miembros de la sociedad de escribir capítulos en lo que sería el libro sobre neurocirugía de la región pineal, microcirugía y otras perspectivas dentro de la región misma de patologías de la región pineal. Entonces, cada uno de estos capítulos que ustedes ven con un simbolito de la SOPEM son capítulos escritos por estudiantes en un libro que realmente va a tener un alcance a nivel mundial. Y eso es lo que nosotros esperamos de varios estudiantes y de varios residentes también, ¿por qué no? A través de Latinoamérica llegar a ese nivel que nosotros pensamos inalcanzable, que porque el resto tiene tecnología, que tienen más acceso a la información, realmente el trabajo que nosotros hacemos, como ya les dije, no debería tener absolutamente nada que envidiarle al resto. Y les dejo con la última diapositiva. Realmente este evento se hace todos los años. Nosotros todos los años hacemos un Neurotitans. Este es nuestro tercer año consecutivo haciendo este evento. Pero lastimosamente esta vuelta tiene un tinte un poco agridulce, por así decir. Porque lo estamos realizando en memoria de quien fue el maestro de nuestro maestro. En memoria del doctor Jukka Hernesniemi, que falleció lastimosamente este año. Y él fue una personalidad gigante dentro de la neurocirugía, no solamente neurocirugía vascular, sino neurocirugía a nivel mundial. Le preguntan a cualquier persona con unos cuantos años de experiencia dentro del campo quién fue Jukka Hernesniemi y les va a contar historias largas y hartas. Fue nombrado el neurocirujano más rápido del milenio. Cuenta la leyenda, por así decir, entre comillas, que él podía clipar un aneurisma de piel a piel, o sea, desde el primer momento en el que hacía una incisión hasta que cerraba la piel con un nylon 3.0, lo hacía en 45 minutos, en una hora aproximadamente. Son cirugías que a otras personas, a otros neurocirujanos, le llevan horas, básicamente. Y nosotros tuvimos la oportunidad, tuvimos la bendición de poder hablar con él en varias ocasiones y el slide que yo les pongo acá es algo que a nosotros realmente nos marcó porque el doctor Yuja realmente siempre quiso lo mejor para nosotros y eso se demuestra en esta frase que dice, entrena a los mejores dentro del grupo de los jóvenes, ellos deberían convertirse en algo mejor que usted. Entonces, lo que él quería, él no quería que seamos nosotros como él quería que seamos mejores que él. Él esperaba que nosotros podamos hacer las cirugías más lindas, las cirugías con menos sangrado, las cirugías más rápidas, más meticulosas y con menos complicaciones en el mundo. Entonces, para empezar este evento y este Neurotitans en su tercera versión, nosotros dedicamos todo este evento a la memoria del profesor Yuka Niemi. Y hoy tenemos ponencias que nos dejaron doctores que fueron no colegas de él, sino que amigos de él. Así que muchísimas gracias por conectarse con nosotros. Bienvenidos al evento y espero que sea de bastante provecho. Tenemos ejes para todos, tenemos un eje de neurotrauma, tenemos un eje de neurovascular, tenemos tumores, tenemos neurocirugía funcional del dolor. Así que cualquiera sea su gusto dentro de esta especialidad que abarca tantas cosas y abarca el órgano más lindo del cuerpo, yo creo que van a encontrar por lo menos un eje o dos ejes o una ponencia que realmente yo creo que les va a cambiar la vida. Así que muchísimas gracias por escucharnos y muchísimas gracias por conectarse con nosotros. Bienvenidos.
Muchísimas gracias, Mauricio Guerrero, presidente de la SOPEN, por ese comentario y esas palabras tan preciosas, ¿no? Sí, es cierto, seguidamente el día de hoy tenemos y honramos el día de hoy al maestro de neurocirugía finés, el profesor Juha Niemi, quien lamentablemente tuvo la partida este mismo año, ¿no? Bueno, tenemos a dos grandes amigos del profesor Niemi. También teníamos al profesor Johan Choque, que nos iba a hablar un poco sobre el legado del profesor Niemi. Sin duda, sin embargo, el profesor se encuentra ahorita en una cirugía, por lo que todo el legado académico del profesor Yuha Niemi se les va a pasar a nuestro grupo de Telegram. Y qué bueno que tanto el profesor Niemi como nosotros tenemos la misma filosofía, que estos libros son completamente gratuitos, ¿no? Tanto el 1001 videos de neurocirugía, hecho también por el profesor Choque Velázquez, como el libro de técnicas en la neurocirugía finlandesa, ¿no? La experiencia de Helsinki. Ok, sin nada más que comentarles, por favor, con las ponencias. Todos estos profesores que van a presentar el día de hoy son europeos, por ende tuvieron la amabilidad para nosotros de grabarnos todos los videos necesarios. No querían quedarse con la no oportunidad de poder hablar un poco sobre su gran amigo, el profesor Johannes Niemi. Empezamos con el profesor Chirian, pero déjenme por favor que Emilia les comente un poco quién es el profesor. Emilia.
Buenas, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están todos? Mi nombre es María Mira Machado, formo parte de la SOPEN, al igual que Mauri, soy de Paraguay, así que saludos a todos los que están visitándonos desde Paraguay y de todas las partes de Latinoamérica, qué gusto verlos por acá. Bueno, me complace poder presentarles hoy al doctor Lipe Sherian. El doctor Lipe Sherian es un gran amigo, era un gran amigo del doctor Juha Niemi y hoy nos va a hablar sobre él, sobre su legado, sobre su amistad, sobre lo que aprendieron ambos, sobre la neurocirugía, para introducirles un poco de quién es el doctor Lipe Sherian. Él es un profesor de neurocirugía que es director del Instituto de Neurociencias en Krishna Institute of Medical Sciences en Karad, India. Él es el consejero general del Asian Congress of Neurological Surgeons y él también es el inventor de la cisternotomía, Cleaning and Cooling Theory. Así que vamos a estar hablando con un grande. Y además él es el miembro del comité de anatomía de la World Federation of Neurosurgeons. Así que nada, sin nada más que decir, le damos inicio a la ponencia del doctor Lipe Sherian. Espero que la disfruten mucho y que puedan aprender sobre un grande de la neurocirugía como es este doctor.
Niemi, better known in the world, Juha, for some peculiar reasons. I was born October 18, 1947 in Niemonen, Kannus, western part of Finland, middle Finland, in an extremely small town, less than 100 inhabitants. And after that, my father, who was a long time in the Second World War, became a teacher and later director of high school in a small village, Ruovesi, where I went with less than 10,000 people there. I went to high school there, so my first 18 years where I was a real country boy. I have not seen any big cities or villages. My early memories are coming from this small village, Niemonen. My first memories are when our 2 chickens died, and when I was very sick, I was brought to hospital, and maybe I was 4 years old when I was hospitalized for 1 week. And then early memories came from a very small town, village also, Kaustinen, where my father was a teacher, and I learned to skiing and the regular skills of Finnish young boys. I remember extremely well that I learned to know which is right and left when I put my skis in front of the school in my feet, and still when I'm operating on, I think me in this position, putting the skis on my feet to know which is right and left. So this has remained all my life to remember which is right and left. Then we moved to Ruovesi, where I went later to high school, and in Ruovesi there was an old GP, Einar Philip Palmén. He had been practicing in Ruovesi alone, taking care of nearly 50 years of all the people there, and he collected stamps, butterflies, coins, which I also did. And as a small boy I went to his private practice, which was very slow already because he was 75 years old, so many people didn't trust anymore on him, so they went to the younger doctor, so it was very silent there in his private practice, and I went there to show my collections of stamps and coins, and then we compared them, and because there was a lot of time, he told stories about his life in medicine, remarkable stories, how he, with that kind of means, 100 years ago, saved lives. And one of example was the young dentist in the village, 30 years old, beautiful lady who had extrauterine pregnancy and was bleeding to death inside her abdomen. So he operated on, and there was a lot of bleeding, and he told me that during the operation he took the blood from inside the abdomen and put it in a saline and gave it back to the patient, and in this way saved her life, and she still lived, I think, more than 60 years after this accident. And that kind of stories made a big impression on me. I was a good gymnast also, and was writing in the school magazine. So I had 3 choices to become, 3 choices as professor. So it was to be a medical doctor, or then gymnastic teacher in the school, or journalist. and my parents told me that you don't even think to be a journalist because you are a shy guy, you cannot go and interview people, and then I gave this up. And also gymnastic teacher was had to do a lot of things with the people, so I selected to become a medical doctor according to Einar Philip Palmén, my first teacher in medicine, and then I applied to Helsinki University 1966, but I didn't come inside the medical faculty, and among the whole course, 300 people, the system in Zurich was so that they dropped out if you was not successful into examination, so they dropped you out from the medical study. And then
can I interrupt you? What was the teacher told you? I mean, what did the teacher tell you? What is that phrase?
It was professor of histology.
Yeah.
Du bist ein Langweiler. You are a boring man.
This is German.
Yeah. So, can I continue?
Yes.
Okay. So, then after 2.5 years there was examination. I had splendid notes and was one of the best in the course because I was reading extremely hard, especially anatomy. Professor Tönderi was a great teacher in anatomy. I always remember his words that he was not ever using a microphone when giving lectures, but he was shouting, and he shouted these famous words: medical study is a lifelong study, and anatomy even more. And this is so true. This is so true. We never learn enough anatomy. And then there was a lecture series by Professor Konrad Akert, Introduction to Brain Research, and I took it as a voluntary lecture. In these lectures, Professor Konrad Akert, famous brain researchers all around the world, he asked once, is there anyone who wants to join brain research in his institute? And I rose my hand, and for reasons I don't know, he selected me and one Swiss guy to work there, and I worked close to 3 years, every evening, every weekend, and skipped a lot of lectures also and courses to make stereotoxic lesions in the brain of rats and mice. And what I learned most and what remained and influenced my life was that I made the operations with OPMI-1 microscope. This was the first microscope used in neurosurgery, and I made PhD in this brain research institute in Zurich. But the most influential was that with the Brain Research Institute, Professor Konrad Akert and Professor Etsuro Kawana from Tokyo, he taught me English. So we went to give my first lecture in St. Petersburg in 1970, and I remember I had 6 or 8 slides in my lecture. And I remember that after my lecture, 2 Russian girls came to name my autograph, and I was very proud and happy about that. So after that, I noted that the basic research, it was extremely lonely and demanding job, and my dreams were to once go to MIT, to USA, to continue brain research, but I didn't, because I came inside the clinics and I saw there Professor Krajenbühl and Jasakil and Professor Senning, famous Swedish cardiac surgeons. They made big impression on me with their lectures, as many other lectures, because the jury had a lot of money. They could hire the best professors around the world, and the competition to be a professor there was very high. So, but what I was thinking, had learned 3 years neuroanatomy, brain anatomy, so I was thinking that I could use it also in clinics, and I was thinking about neurology, neurosurgery, or cardiac surgery because of Professor Senning. But then I elected neurosurgery, and I asked Professor Yasakil to join him, and he said, okay, after your final examination you can begin in Zurich. But during 3 months before that I heard rumors that it was extremely hard to work with him, and the discipline in his clinics was extremely hard. So I changed my plans and went back to Finland after writing Chairman Professor Gunnar Björkesten in Helsinki to accept me, and I had recommendation letters from Professor Konrad Aket, so they accepted me as a resident in Helsinki. I began my residency in Helsinki June 1st, 1973, and I remember it like yesterday, so the life is going very fast. In the beginning I was very disappointed in Helsinki because in Zurich I had heard and seen that microscope was used in neurosurgery. It was not so in Helsinki, but I was happy because there were many trauma cases, so I learned to do angiography. This was the way to diagnose expanding lesions, hematomas, intracranially, and I became rather skilled doing angiographies, made hundreds of angiographies, and then operated also a lot of epidural, subdural hematomas and intracerebral hematomas. In the beginning it was difficult because many of my cases were reoperated and I had tears in my eyes. But I remember one older nurse was encouraging me, said, Juha, you will become a good neurosurgeon. And I developed very fast operator, and I was very popular by nurses to do trauma cases because I was very fast in doing them, and so they were happy to go home after emergencies. So, of course, you need a mentor also in neurosurgery, and this was Dr. Seppo Pakarinen, who had made famous PhD study on the incidence of subarachnoid hemorrhage in Finland, and he was also a good friend and was giving many advices outside of neurosurgery in life, and we became so close that I dared to ask him to clip an aneurysm 1976. He said initially he said it is too early, but then we went to a restaurant, we were drinking beer, and he promised that I may clip an aneurysm, and then in August 1976 I clipped my first PCAM aneurysm with a high-fetch clip, and it was a successful operation, and I was extremely happy and proud. And even I had done stereotactic surgery. So the situation in Helsinki was so that there was Professor Björkesten had died in prostatic cancer, so there were 2 rivals to get the professorship. It was Dr. Laitinen, stereotactic surgery, and Professor Trupp. And Dr. Laitinen, he had very wide visual fields, and he went to Burdenko Institute after Serpinenko had published his series on aneurysm occlusion by balloons, and after 2 weeks he came smiling back from Moscow and telling that he found the secret of Serpinenko balloons. It was important because Serpinenko didn't tell anyone how he had was making these balloons, and so we called Nokia, who was doing that time rubber shoes, not telephones, and in a few weeks we had latex balloons, and we were doing in the night in the X-ray department occlusion of rabbit abdominal aorta with balloons, and we made also a small publication. But because Professor Trupp was elected as a chairman, so he fired Dr. Laitinen away from the clinics, and then had to select with the open microsurgery microscope had come to Helsinki, and I remember from the first operations by the seniors that I was always helping them to forward their hand to the operative field, and I also remember that when annulus ruptured, they kicked the microscope out and went to the regular old operation to stop the bleeding without microscope. So they didn't train in laboratory, they just took the microscope in use. And during my residency I made around 600 independent cases, and then 1976 I made my PhD on severe brain injuries under Professor Trupp, and became also specialist in August 1979, and this was the biggest experience in my life when I went to post office to pick up a small brown envelope, and that was inside was my diploma to be a neurosurgeon, so I knew now I have a profession.
Yes.
After becoming a specialist in neurosurgery, I was in Helsinki, and I noted that in 3 months I was doing 8 operations because I was the youngest one, so I began to search a place where I could operate a lot. Because my thinking of neurosurgery was that you have to do a lot of operations to become a master, and I counted that with 8 operations a month it will not give so many a year. It takes too much time, so I went first to Uppsala, Sweden. I could operate a lot of cases, but the microsurgery was not high level there, and then I went to Eastern Finland, to Kuopio, and there was a new institute founded by late Professor Matti Vapalahti, and that year 1980 CT came also, and it was like a jungle, Eastern Finland, so there were psychiatric neurological hospitals, there were many cases undiagnosed, and with CT we could find a lot of tumors, and there was a high incidence of subarachnoid hemorrhage also, so I could operate a lot of aneurysms. And one of the important things was, I remember 1979 when I became specialist, I saw the book of Hiro Suzuki, 1000 aneurysms, and I hold it in my hands, and I thought no one can do so many aneurysms in the world, but it was an impressive moment for me, so I loved the atmosphere in the aneurysm operation for reasons we know very well. It was exciting, dangerous that time, and success was also very great. You were very happy when you were successful in this aneurysm operation. So I could operate many cases in Kuopio, and my goal, my maybe stupid goal, was that I have to do 10,000 operations before I can develop something new in neurosurgery. And in Kuopio I was 17 years. I was operating day and night, but of course the operations took longer time when you were a young neurosurgeon, but I prepared me very well. So I read anatomy and read books and neurosurgical textbooks, and I learned to operate many cases from poorly neurosurgical textbook, like I operated my first basilar tip aneurysm just by reading Drake and Pierce's description in the chapter of the basilar tip aneurysms, and so I made it very successfully, and I thought, okay, this is not so difficult, but I learned many things later, so I learned not to underestimate any case, so even chronic subdural hematoma is the most important lesion for the patient, and you have to do it very well. And so in Kuopio I operated more than 6,000 cases, and it was hard times because we were nearly all the time on call. So the time was flying forwards, and it was completely different conditions as in many other southern countries. It was very cold winters up to -40, and to wake up in the night to go and operate on traumas or tumors or aneurysms, it was very hard because you had to operate next day, next morning, also elective cases. But this is how it is all over the world, except nowadays in Europe where completely different conditions are existing. But it was a great school. What I learned in Eastern Finland, I learned to be fast, to be able to sleep sometime, and I get large experience on brain tumors, aneurysms, and AVMs also, and made my publications there. My mentor Seppo Pakarinen told that don't do any more publication than PhD, because this is the highest level of at the university. But so I didn't do any publications in nearly 10 years, but then I noted without publications I will never be able to be a chairman and select my cases. So I began to write, and 3 years were very depressive because all the papers, even large material from my aneurysm database, came back. More than 1,000 aneurysms, 1,300 aneurysms, they always came back, but we learned to write, and then we learned to publish, and so a flow of publications began in Kuopio. One of the most crucial points in developing a good neurosurgeon was that I spent from Kuopio, Eastern Finland, many months around the world, always short periods. First I went to Zurich 1982 to see Yasakil to operate on, and this was the most important thing. I saw real microneurosurgery, and I went several times back to Zurich for short moments, and then I went also to London, Ontario to see Dr. Drake and Pierles operate on, and I went also many other places, but these two places were the most important things. So I learned everything from Yasakil in microneurosurgery, but as a role model to be a neurosurgeon, a good medical doctor, and a humble human being was Dr. Drake. So this was the combination I learned. So with the publications done in Kuopio on aneurysm database, mainly vascular cases and trauma cases, and then with the book of on vertebrovascular aneurysm with Dr. Drake and Pierles and other publications, I was successful to become chairman 1997 in Helsinki, which I had left 1980. I remember that time Professor Krupp asked me if I will come back. In 1 second I said, in 17 years I will come back, and I could manage this thing, even not so easily. But I became chairman 97 in Helsinki, and this was the big thing, because now I could decide independently about my cases, and I was not, no one else could select the cases. So I was looking all the admissions early in the morning and selected the cases and divided them to the team according to their skills and took the most difficult cases, and they were most cerebrovascular cases and tumors which I selected to be operated on.
You can start.
Okay. So thinking back on the time in Helsinki, so I had a lot of visitors from abroad, more than 3,000 learned microneurosurgery from me, but I was not so good in teaching domestic people because the working time in Europe is 37 hours and most people were adapted to that, so they wanted to learn during daytime. I should teach them to operate on daytime, and I was not agreed with that. So I said, if you want to learn from me, so you have to come any time of the day, and the people visiting from abroad, they were ready to join me any time, but the domestic ones not. So we were like a isolated island, my operation room, domestic nurses, extremely skillful team, but seldom the Finnish neurosurgeons trainees accompanied me. Some of them were as fellows with me, but not all attended my all operations. So because I was operating always very late, so this was maybe one of the difficult things. I couldn't manage very well in the department, so certainly this gave difficulties, and also I had difficulties with administration because I was not giving very flexible person. I was good in using the publicity. I used the publicity in the way I invited journalists to inside the operation room to see the operations, and in this way I was famous also in Finland, and this meant that the department get money, and many renovations and surgical tools were possible to get. Money was always scarce. There were no good years, and actually with a rather small budget we could manage. But I learned also to manage and run department economically, and every year we were doing profit, and that because so many operations were done, so the administration loved us actually, because we were like the crown diamond of the university hospital, the most famous clinic, internationally most famous clinic there. So we got a lot of support, but then every 3 years there was organization change, and you had to adapt to the organization changes, different computer systems, different names of the different societies, and then I think the last organization change began 2013, 2 years before my retirement, and then that year Germany won the soccer World Championship, and we, with our life course, which was organized always in June, won the Esculap Academic Prize. Out of 800 life courses around the world, we got the #1 prize. So I said the guy who was doing the organization change, I said that, do you think that Germany will change the coach and the players now when they won the World Championship? Do you think we should change something now? And I was very opposed to change something. something there. And so in my last year I was pushed aside because I was against the organization change, and this was a rather humiliating year, the last year, because I was with the new chairman. I was forbidden to operate on aneurysms, AVMs, or I was doing redo bags and small meningiomas, and had many fellows around the world, but I turned that also good because we began to edit my videos, and we made the book 1001 and more videos, and it became also a very great success. Actually, I didn't understand that I will get retired, so I was not prepared for that. And so my last operation, October 29th, 2015, I operated one small MCA aneurysm. It was the last operation in Helsinki, and after that I had many plans to go around the world. I was invited in many places.
Hello.
Before the time in Nepal, I was in Little Rock 2 months, and to follow Ali Christ's surgeries, and I learned a lot. And even recently I was by Ali Christ, so I felt like Professor Yasakil is always saying that we remain students forever, so every day you learn something more. So I came after Istanbul Congress to Nepal. After having been in Australia, I came here beginning of September 2017, and to completely different conditions I have seen, but after being so much around the world, I could adapt well. Here, of course, the conditions are completely different, and operating on here in Nepal in the beginning was difficult because there were so many things I couldn't count. So I've now thinking backwards, so I was very protected in Helsinki with my surgeries, with a good team, and with the visitors who were always making remarks when I was doing something wrong. This was not so here, but with my experience, I could manage here, and for me it was life-saving that I could operate on here those cases and see to continue to do surgery, to do cases, even not so many. Because I think in my mind I have operated 3 times more cases here than actually I did, because of the special policy. I have never seen that the patient went lama, so left. The best cases are leaving the clinics. The most beautiful aneurysms or tumors, they are leaving the clinics and go somewhere else, home, to die or to try to continue. So this was something very special for me, and actually disturbing. But the time here, 9 months in Nepal, so it has been also good training in meditation. Even I didn't accept, or it was for me the Indian meditation techniques were different, so I couldn't accept them. But in my own way, I meditated a lot and was thinking about my life back and forwards, and I think it was extremely important time so to be involved in neurosurgery, but also to have time to adapt to the situation, that you are no more chairman in Helsinki, but you have to make a new future. And I had a good offer from China before I came to Nepal, and without promising to come to Nepal, I would have begun there in China already 1 year ago, but I think it was very, very good to be here in Nepal because I could concentrate and prepare in my mind how to begin again in a very busy department and big city, your life, and this Nepal period remains extremely important in my mind because of the seeing different society, developing country, extremely friendly people here, but to see also the big corruption here that is existing, and I had the feeling that it's extremely difficult to change the world. And in the 60s, when I was completely young, we thought we can change the world, we can stop the wars. It didn't happen. I had the same feeling here. You cannot change the society, but we are very dependent on the society. This was what I learned as a chairman in Helsinki, that we are completely dependent of the society. We are part of the society. We are not an isolated island as neurosurgeons. We are dependent on the society, how it is working, giving insurance for the patients to pay the treatment and so on. So this is extremely important. So to be a good microneurosurgeon, you have to be also aware of the life outside of your neurosurgical department, because you are dependent on economical situation of the country and many things, religious things, illiterate things, uneducation, superstitious things, and this is what I have learned in Nepal. But I have, with Fitri, looking at the surroundings of the hospital in the last days, so we have had tears in our eyes and thinking that it was an extremely good time to be here together and to see all the people here, because something in Nepal is very special. They are extremely close and friendly people, and you get good friends here. To go to China now, it is of course a new challenge. It's a big challenge, and it is certainly my last place, because I get a good offer and good support from Henan Provincial People's Hospital. They want to fly high, and that's why they hired me. I made a good agreement for 3 years and have collected a good team to have a good basic research in neurosciences and also support from my earlier fellow. So we have a small international team, me, Fitri, and those fellows or neurosurgeons coming from Venezuela, Hugo Andrade, now in Germany, and Ajmal Semar, originally Afghan, trained, made his medical studies in Germany and Switzerland, Zurich, made also great neuroscience in both countries, and is now in Vancouver specializing in getting a specialist in neurosurgery. This is our international team, and I have interviewed Henan people very well, and I know that they are very skillful neurosurgeons, and so it is a big challenge to be there. I have 38 beds there in a new building. It is called Juha Hernsniemi International Center for Neurosurgery, and they have they are giving a lot of support for that because they want to be one of the most important neurosurgical centers in China. And this is of course difficult because China is Beijing and Shanghai are famous cities, and Guangzhou and many other cities. But of course, with the Helsinki book, we wrote a book in Helsinki, and it's translated in many languages, also in Chinese, and for these reasons I'm very famous in China, and we, on that famousity, the Henan Provincial People's Hospital has been counting with the great support of President Gu and Professor Lee. They are building a completely different center, and I feel very happy to be once having selection of those many cases that are present, of course, in the huge country of China. So I was once speaking with Vinko Dolens many years ago, and I was telling that male has three dangerous things in his life. It is tobacco, whiskey, and wild females. And I have had everything, so my life has not been like Yasakil's life. I have been, besides huge amount of working, I have lived heavily and have enjoyed life fully, maybe too much in some respects. So because my family life was in the beginning very happy when the children were born, but because of a lot of working and many relationships with females, it was slowly destroyed. And when I became chairman in 1997 in Helsinki, then I moved to Helsinki and was visiting my home in Kuopio only the weekends, and then slowly my marriage was going down, and finally we divorced. But my wife Rita, she was a intensive care nurse, and she was the most wonderful woman in the world in mid-70s that I could find, and she was like a dream for me, and I was very happy to have her, and we had good family life, but somehow it went from the slipped away. Maybe, yeah, it was one of the reasons was my heavy working. What I learned thinking back is that you should never come directly from the operation room home, because your brain is storming, you are full of adrenaline, and then you come home and then you hear that your children have difficulties in the school, or the teacher has sent a note or something like that, so you are not ready to react to them. And Rille, like Rita Rille, my ex-wife, so she had a strong temper. In the beginning of our marriage, she thought that she will let me do my things, but she cannot support me. She was taking care of the family in every aspect, and this way it was great, and I cordially love her still. It is so. I cannot discard, or I cannot forget so many years, 40 years together, all the small moments of the life. I cannot not forget them, but actually in the later in the late 2010 or beginning of 2010, we didn't have so much connection anymore because the children were out of home, and so it was. There were too many wounds I had caused in her, so it was sometimes heavy fights and quarrels, and so it was a good decision to divorce. So now we are good friends, and we have many good memories together. And, I think this is. It has been. She has been extremely important person in my life, also my children, but because of the work what I regret, so I didn't have time for my children. So they were small, they were born, and suddenly they go to university and they are out of their home. So time was flying so fast, and so the life is so short, so you should remember that there are many parts of the day. So you can go to work, give something to your family. I forgot too much to give something for my family, but my children are saying that they didn't suffer, that they have many good memories, and so my ex-wife really is also saying that she remembers that I was playing with the children a lot, and we had good time together in our summer villa. We were spending a lot of time together, but even so I regret very much that I was not better father and taking care of the family. I was working, of course I was giving the financial support for the family, but spending any big great holidays with the family we didn't do, so it was mainly I was bound with the working. So this was maybe the reason that we somehow grew apart, because I was in Helsinki with my department all the time, traveling around the world, and really was taking care of the home in Kuopio. So we had different worlds, completely different worlds, so different connections then. So.
Muy bien, esa ha sido la fantástica y emotiva conversación que ha tenido el profesor de neurocirugía finlandés Juha Hernesniemi con el profesor Aichi. Sin duda, cuando todos nos enteramos de la partida del profesor, ¿no? Acá en Cusco estaban los doctores entrando a una cirugía. En otro lado, en Paraguay, Mauricio también estaba entrando a otra. Todos los muchachos estaban haciendo sus pendientes. Y fue algo que nos conmocionó, ¿no? Fue algo que también lo conmocionó mucho al profesor Chirian. Eran muy amigos, tanto que, como pueden notar, el profesor Ernest Niemi viajó hasta Nepal, que es donde trabaja el profesor Chirian, ¿no? Bueno, entre tanto que tenemos esa ponencia, tenemos también la de otro profesor muy grande llamado Giancarlo Perra, ¿no? Déjenme, por favor, presentarles a Lucero Vera Torres. Ella es la secretaria general de la Sociedad Panamericana de Estudiantes de Neurocirugía y Neurociencias, quien nos va a introducir el día de hoy al profesor Giancarlo Perra. El día de hoy, justo en la mañana, fue que grabamos esta sesión debido a que el profesor estaba ya en altas horas de la noche allá en Italia, pero no quería perderse la oportunidad de poder hablarles a ustedes, los médicos y estudiantes de medicina latinoamericanos. Lucero, por favor, coméntanos un poquito del doctor Giancarlo.
Buenas noches, Uriel. Buenas noches con todos. Es una alegría tenerlos de nuevo en nuestro tercer Congreso Internacional de Neurocirugía. Con mucho honor voy a presentarles al profesor Giancarlo Perra, especialista en neurocirugía y expresidente de la Brain House Padova en Italia. Es miembro del personal de neurocirugía clínica de la Universidad de Helsinki y responsable de neurocirugía vascular, que está ahora jubilado, del Hospital Cívico Palermo. El doctor Giancarlo Perra, como nos comentaba en la llamada, era un íntimo amigo del doctor Hernesniemi. y en esta ponencia nos hablará sobre todo de la técnica que ha desarrollado a lo largo de los años que ha permitido revolucionar la neurocirugía moderna. El doctor Perra nos deleitará con el tema de The Legacy of the Professor Ernest Mieni, His Merits, and How He Developed His Neurosurgical Technique. Aquí les presento su ponencia.
Muchas gracias, Lucero. Sin duda, esta es una charla mucho más emotiva porque el profesor Perra la dirige exactamente para los residentes jóvenes. Puedes empezar, Lucero, gracias.
Muchas gracias, Uriel.
Telling the legacy of Professor Ernest Niemi. Professor Giancarlo, you can start in anytime you want. Thank you.
Okay. I thank you very much for the invitation. It's for me a very good moment to talk about UA because I think he's one of the prominent neurosurgeons in this century and in the past century also because we are after 2000. So to talk about Ernest Niemi is a very long travel, so we try to go straight on the way. Okay, the first thing that you can find on the book, Tricks and in neurosurgery, is this aphorism: simple, clean, while preserving normal anatomy, because clean is fast and effective. Surgery is an art, and you should be one of the artists. So this is really what is thought about neurosurgery. It's not just a surgery, it's something that you must do because you like. And then when you like neurosurgery, you cannot do anything. And for that, he wrote also that every man has a debit with his profession to put on record money or precious object. He was just happy that someone recognized his value. I met Iwa in November 2003, and in Sicily we still had a beautiful weather. Like today, we have almost 38 degrees. And I left Punta Rana in the morning with the sunshine and everything, and I arrived in the evening and found terrible weather, cold, ice on the street. And I began to wonder how people can live here in this condition. However, I already knew that he was a master in neurosurgery for aneurysm, and after a few hours in operating room, I realized that he was dealing with a special man. This is a short story about him. This is Iwa and David when he was a young boy, and his father was a warrior during the Second War against Russia. Tried to invade the Finland. But after these 5 years in war, they went in a house, and he was a professor of letters. This is Iwa when he was an adolescent, about 18, in Germany, was a normal man, and this is the man that gave him he suggested to do medicine as a profession. And he was not able to come inside the medical school in Helsinki, so he was doing a medical school in Switzerland. And after graduate, the first man he knew was Professor Krahenbuhl and Professor Yasser that began to be the error. When this is a picture from 1973 that he was a resident in neurosurgery in Kuopio, already working a lot. And he had as a teacher, as a mentor for aneurysm surgery, Professor Pakarinen. He was very famous because, as you know, in Finland, they have a very large number of aneurysms, like something genetic, so they found a lot. When he was 45, he arrived in Toronto and he was looking the work of Professor Drake, and then was studying the surgery of and the subtemporal approach for basilar aneurysm. Helsinki, they did a lived course of microneurosurgery every year, starting from 2002 until 2017. And the place was full of people from everywhere in the world. In this picture, this is Ushen. Ushen is one of the best pupils of Professor and his name, he was very able to draw the picture, and he was always drawing the image of intraoperatory. Intraoperatory was drawing because he was able to do this. This is Professor Yasagil in operating room. He was 78 years old. This is Professor Ugo Ture. And then this is a place where you can share your experience, and then you can ask everything you want to a giant of a neurosurgery. For example, in these pictures, you can see me, the Professor Yasagi, and they were saying this is, in that moment, they were saying this is a supermarket of a neurosurgery. And Professor Nesniem, I must go to see him working because I want to study what his arm and his hands, because it was extremely fast surgery for many things that we. This is a Jari Sironen, is one of the pupil resident, is a Finnish, is a very good sportsman, very good hands, but Professor said that he had many hobbies, and one of that was a sport, a ski sport. It's a national ski sport for the winter sport, winter ski. So this is all the people that live there. There's Professor Alcrist, Lawton, Tanekawa, Professor Dolan. It's really a place that you go there, you're nobody, but you can speak at the same level with everybody, and then you can tell your history, you can share your idea. It was very good to improve the knowledge of the. This is another pictures at the end of the course. Look at these pictures. It's Mika Nimmer. Is actually is the chairman there. I don't remember the name. Hugo Alichrist, Evandro de Oliveira, Professor Scienza, Ugo Ture, Reza Dashti. All it was like a family, you know. When everybody change, and then at the same time you have a fun time. So this is a Sicilian man during the Second War that indicate the good pathway to American soldiers to see the right way to how to do. And this is a pictures, each point is a pupil of an academic coming from all over the world, but this is all the pictures because at the end he had a very much more point. So we start from the story. Professor Yasagi was the first to apply a microscope and discovered how to open the Sylvian fissure to get access to the aneurysm. And he made this Pythagorean approach, doing 4 drill holes, and he numbered the drill hole. The number 1 is keyhole, and the other one. And after opening the operculum, he is open also the Sylvian fissure, and he said Sylvian fissure is very easy. You need at least 20 minutes to open, and then you can see all the vessel. Because in the Yasagi method, before you clip the anterior communicating aneurysm, you must see at least 12 vessels. So this is the revolution, because you use the microscope, and after that it was very quiet. You want to know exactly the position of the vessel from everywhere. So with this particular aspect of the veteran, a surgeon under a microscope using pictorial approach, opening superficial under a microscope, was using a micro instrument. I can say that Yassergil is a blue collar working very hard alone, is one of the walking the walk surgery, because he do the things and he don't talk about like many others. As opposed to white collar. White collar, they ready to talk about the neurological surgery from the other and not really make any contribution. It's what you are saying, talking the talk surgery. This is just the night club surgery, you can say. So micro neurosurgery was born with the Yassergil. In this period, the surgeon at the beginning was sitting in a chair, working, dissecting, exposing the vessel, doing clean surgery, respecting the anatomy to reveal the neck of the aneurysm and clip it with less risk than before, in the epoch before microscope. Still now, there is a school like Evandro de Oliveira, Ali Christ, they still use this method, but what's this is totally different from the Esnemi technique in OR, because the technique developed with the experience of Professor Esnemi is that the surgeon operates standing up. He makes use of a microscope with the mouthpiece command of the movement, and the microscope must always be perfectly balanced, because if you ever seen an SDM operating, he has the microscope pipe mouth, he put the hands in this way, and so going around the aneurysm and change the angle to visual to have a more effective access to the aneurysm. He was using also the arm rest to rest the elbow, and the must always stay on the edge of craniotomy. This is so. And the regular instrument, they must have the right range. Usually only the sucker was very short, and if he was doing a more deep operation, he had the sucker 2 or 3 centimeters more. And they had the 2 sucker ready at the same time, the 4 millimeter sucker and the 2 millimeter. So with the 4 millimeter, in case of accident or rupture of an aneurysm, it was ready to have enough suction to clean around the vessel and put temporary clip. And depending on the state, there is also another track, because the sucker of an edema had 3 holes, and then it was like a flute. So if you blind all the 3 holes, the sucker is more power. If you touch only 1 hole, is less power. And so this is important, because when you do this kind of operation in a standing position, you don't need to leave the hands and regulate the microscope, and then you can take again the bipolar and the sucker. So there is a continuous work without dead time. And then with the movement of the head, you can see all the angles that you are going to do. So the evolution was to minimize and optimize the Yassergin system. He was a hard worker, a blue collar, walking the walking surgery, alone again, always fighting against people that talk a lot. As you know, when he arrived in Helsinki, the the department made about 600 operations in 1 year. After him in 1998, they did more than 1,500 operations. And people was talking about how he was able to do all the operation and not before. So he had always many enemies during his career. And Azimi gave a big contribution to the decade, it was transforming the classic Yassergin Pilterianal approach in a lateral supraorbital approach. So you can do, he always said that he tailored this small approach because it needs less time, and then you can do 3 operations in 1 day and not only one. So the anesthetists were always fighting with him because everything was very fast in his operatory room. So he was using always the Sujita frame, and then, as you see, the hands, look at the range of the circle is very short, so you can better control the trembling of the hands, and it was always during the microscope phase, during the operation with the eye magnification. So also a small movement is like a very big movement. And then he was able to be stand in that position because he used all this. So this is a sentence that smaller means to be clean. Clean means respect of brain anatomy, and this is safer. Finally, this is correct the sequence of events in neurosurgery: small, essential, clean, fast, respecting the normal anatomy. This is the mantra of Professor Yasser. I've seen an operation that in one aneurysm operation, the patient loses less blood than when you do your beard in the morning. It's true, it's true. And for easy aneurysm, also I remember he did a posterior communicating aneurysm in 18 minutes, 18 from the skin to the clip, and then 1 hour to close because the assistant was closing under the microscope. So it was very slow, the closure, and not the opening and the clipping. So the difference is that in the original Yassergin microneurosurgery practice, you should open severe fissure, and then following that, the subarachnoidal space. In evolution, focused opening of a severe fissure is more than enough. Why lose time to open all severe fissure, often damaging the brain and using a spatula? Because the Sylvian fish is not always the same. Sometimes it's very easy. You don't go in the subarachnoidal space and then it's open. Other one is imbricate. In many, oh, you had something inflammatory, so it is difficult. Then you can damage a little bit the brain. It's the same idea to expose the vessel, but in less space with less damage from the brain. The final surgery is a sequential surgery without death time, in which in brain now we have called the mainly surgery because it was a very, and then it was for example, laughing with you, and then he arrived on the operatory room, put the glove, and then the head and the pipe mouth, and then you can see anything in 10 minutes. He was arrived at the end of the operation. One of the things is a germinoma of epiphysis. I have seen in the morning he was putting the patient in a sitting position and doing the supracerebellar infratentorial approach. And he arrived, he put a very small hole on the torcular of Aerophilo, and he made the craniotomy, opened the dura, and then he arrived two bridge vein where from cerebellar and the tentorium, he put the bipolar from one side and the sacral from the other side. And then I said, why you don't coagulate this bridge vein? He said, because it is too easy to do in this way, and never coagulate any vein because you don't know the damage you can do. After 1 hour and 15 minutes, we finished the operation. Immediately we thought it was an inoperable case, but he said that I do this operation on Monday morning because after weekend is for warmed hands. So what was inoperable in Italy, but all over in Italy, not only in Sicily, was extremely easy for him. It's really a virtuosism that you cannot imagine. The patient, 1 hour and a half of the operation was calling the family and saying, oh, it's okay, it's like he did a small operation. So this is the instrument. This is the armrest. This is the sucker, as you can see the 3 horn on the sucker. This is the bipolar with a different length, depends how deep is the patient. This is the chisel, very simple chisel. This is the needle for a lumbar puncture. And this is the instrument. They use always there's a laminotomy to take a small piece of the sphenoidal crystal, no? Is of the bone. Sometimes, or the clinoidal process. He tried to do something with this when he was not doing the clinoidectomy perfect. So look at these pictures. These are the clog of Ernest David, is right. One foot is on the ground, other one is on the foot. He used the clog like a ladder because he was down, look at this position, is like acrobatic position, and then he lose the clog. And when he did the other movement to go up, he used the clog to be higher and then take like an eagle from the This was me. I was a really stupefied, always with the how we can do this. Okay. So Pittelian approach, as you can see, this is very bigger with the hole, the key hole, the other. And then this is the supraorbital lateral supraorbital approach. This is only one hole, only 3 centimeters. And then look, here you can see the Sylvian fissure with the vein, you know. And then this is the anatomy. This is at the end of a lateral supraorbital approach. Where is the Sylvian fissure? You don't know. So he just used a little bit a spatula, but very small. He take the optic system, and after the CSF release, the brain was down, and then you can see everything. You can see the Sylvian fissure, then you go down, and then you open just in the place you need to do this. Of course, to do this surgery, you need also a good anesthetist, because they have a very particular anesthetist. They do just deep one and liquid, and hyperventilation, and nothing more. So anatomy was performed in the other GSK for cranial craniotomy for many years. We must consider that Italian craniotomy involved the incision of temporal muscle and subsequently often is atrophy with evident blemish and sometimes chewing disorders. They cannot hit a lot. Furthermore, the imperfection was due to the visibility of the floor drill hole. The opening of the silvial fissure was not always easy, and there could be damage to the cerebral parenchyma. The operating time could therefore be reduced by adopting a smaller craniotomy with a smaller incision of the temporal muscle, is just a little bit in anterior, and the consequent lower unsightly impact and the implementing of minimum opening of a Sylvian valley, which will also access to the aneurysm of other pathology. So the secret is to take the chiasmatic system and release the liquor. When they had was in acute after the subarachnoid hemorrhage, he did the lumbar puncture, so he take out the liquor from the lumbar. So, but was very rare because in that case the brain is angry, red, hard, so it is difficult to have access direct to the chiasmatic system, and you need to do the CFS release from the lumbar puncture. So this is the very different strategy in the use of clips and evolution of craniotomy. You can see this is a small craniotomy. This is so small craniotomy is doing by Professor Mura in Santiago. And this is the lateral suborbital approach. This is interhemispheric approach for pericallosal aneurysm. And then there's a different strategy to put a clip at the base of the aneurysm. So this is the other thing. Anatomy was extremely famous and extremely able to do basilar aneurysm via subtemporal approach. He started this with the Professor Drake in Toronto. This is the correct position of the patient. This is the small incision or subtemporal, and then you clean the bone from the temporal muscle, and then in this case you do 2 holes, and at the hand but for this operation, the secret is to take a lumbar puncture and take out at least 120 millimeters of liquor, CSF. So you can get access to the base, and then you cut tentorium, and after cut tentorium, you must suspend the tentorium, and then you have access, you can see the third nerve, and then the bifurcation with the aneurysm. This is the position used. As you can see, the hands always around the craniotomy, never happen, never. It's like a piano player. You must have the finger always in the right position. This is a professor of NSDM, Professor Drake, and he had a good idea because of the giant aneurysm. They need to have a ring clip. Why? Because a giant aneurysm with a very big neck, if you put a straight clip to exclude, the clip is a slipper. You understand? Shivola. Is not, don't stay at the place. So with the ring clip, you can see this. You take the far place of the aneurysm, and then there is a small aneurysm here, then you put a straight clip near the ring clip. So this is some used very much for many difficult operations, because the ring clip help you in giant and calcified aneurysm. You take only the distal part of the aneurysm, and in the ring is open, and then you put all the clip straight, okay, but must close only the half past of the aneurysm. So he was really the master of aneurysm posterior surgery. He did more than 1,000 operations, but this is a picture for 6 or 7 years ago. He did much more. I know that the last operation he did was a basilar bifurcation aneurysm before 3-4 months before come back in a film. So this is the different clip applier. So in this case, we can say something. Professor Yassin was always using a clip applier, right, straight, and without movement in the head of the clip, because he tried to do the correct position for the clip with the movement of a microscope. In other cases, other surgeons use the clip applier that is mobilized the beginning of the clip applier, so you can orientate before clip, depend the incision or the angle of your visual, so you can do in that way. It's a different system, but he was using always a straight clip applier. And this is Michael Lawton that was looking how he was doing the operation. And this is a pictures we take during the course with the Professor Yasser that respect him a lot. And he wrote also a letter for his funeral. But everybody was in Helsinki to see how good he was in his job. What about us? So when you see a man like Yasaji that is so clever, you must not be like I can do nothing, because for those who are neurosurgeons, it is not possible to think to be able to perform the same number and the same kind of everything, because there is no time, because of embolism and bypass. There is many other possibilities for an area. But it is always possible to obtain a new result that open a new horizon and shift the limit. We must always remember and keep in mind that the progress comes from what we don't know yet. The rest is already the past. So there is a good memory for example, this is a woman I have operated in 2007. She was 89 years old, and it was perfect, and she lived at least 7 more years without any problem. So this is one thing. So in the book, when I was a specialist in neurosurgery, the limit was 70 years because of anesthesia, and also the stupid things like the technique was different. For example, in the beginning of my career, the people operate to the head was bleeding everywhere. It's because they that time don't discover to take the head up, so it was really a lack of blood everywhere. So now with a modern technique and some tricks, you can do operation in every case, and all the people is not like all the people than 50 years ago. All the people now can, like Yasaji is 99 this year, and he's still working and talking and giving advice to the young neurosurgeon. So this is something. For example, this is another case. She was a, a woman with a basilar bifurcation aneurysm, and I have operated that she was in the grade 5 of Unterdes. And they asked me to do something because they want to take the organ, so she must have 24 hours of observation. So because of the hydrocephalus, I put the ventriculostomy external drainage, and the day after she was moving, she was not in a coma dépassé, so I decided to operate. And then I was able to do the good operation. That you can see the perforator here. You must be have courage. And after 4 years and a half, she was awake singing a song of Italian singer. So this was incredible. But and she had no depression. She had never. All the newspapers were talking about this. So, but why? It is not important that you save one life or less. So it's important. But it is not the point. The point is the brain can recover even when it's damaged. When you do something, you come inside the way of the disease, and then you can change the destiny. But the most important thing is that brainstem can recover for severe ischemic injury because it was the basilar was in a vasospasm. And after clipping, recovered the vascularization, and in 4 years, she recovered all the superior function. She was almost normal. Here I cannot see, but I have also the video that she talked, and then she participated to the ambience and everything. So this is to do something different. And the future of anatomy is the neurosurgeon. This is Jua Ernestnemi in 2004, and she is a Serbian student. At that time, she had a giant basilar trunk aneurysm, like a butterfly. So, two sac of aneurysm in the middle of a basilar trunk. And then we operate together in Padova. And now she is still alive, mother of 3 sons, is perfect. So the limit is very far. We have not joined the limit. It's just, we must do something. The Professor Xu Bin in China is a genius of bypass surgery. And in the future, you will see that in ischemic disease, bypass can do many things that we don't know until now. And the Fadi Charbel, the study of flowmetry is an important job that he's doing. So other developing of the based on the neurosurgeon, for example, Benan Rezaid is one, brevetted this slow crossing clip for this second aneurysm. So there is many new things to do, and there is also a publication you can see on neurosurgery that explain how it works. It's like a clip that put, and every day it close more, and then at the end the vessel is a perfect normal. So like this is the shoulder water. Neurosurgery is when you have many things you must do. You must talk at the same level with the big, there is Dolan, Kalkis, de Oliveira, the share your experience, do your experience at the same time. For example, I went in Finland at least 100 times in 20 years. But every time I was there 15 days, and then I come back to my country in Sicily, in Palermo, they're trying to do something better and better and better. And at the end, I was able to perform also a good and difficult case, and also desperate case, because when you have a time, when you have not so many cases, and then you find someone 89 years old in good condition, why not? I do the operation because you have the technique in the hands and then you can do. So it's normal. And then we did all this operation, all this something similar to live course in Helsinki, in Padova, and this is called the brain house that we did. Me and the Professor Scienza were the two presidents. Scienza was chairman in Padova, and is one of the best neurosurgeons in Italy, can do everything. This is Ernest was our star guest almost every year, and the Reza Dusty now in New York is the shoulder of NSD at the time. So this is my opinion. We must share information to obtain better results in less time, like astrophysics to look for alien life. This is a system of all the telescopes in the world. One is in Chile. They talk and they have all the information at the same time. So if someone discover alien, so they already know immediately. And this is a group of physics, this is Einstein, that were always together to make a group, homogeneous group, to do something. So the future, how we can work? We can work with it's like a match, it's a familiar. You know, it's a really synchronized, perfect. This is a classic moment. But look at the moment. You know, that is different. It's not classic music, it's modern music, jazz music, and old piece. So it's a mixture of many ideas. We are starting from the assembly until the but there is a very fast cycle. Okay, now we are landing, and we say to you what this is possible. We will call you. Thank you for all you did for us, because you call you at 3 o'clock in the night from everywhere in the world is already ready at the telephone to share his experience with you. He's a very informal man, and everybody know him, know that he is really, and he was very informal, able, and really has conditioned the life of neurosurgery in the last 50 years. Thank you. Is okay? Hello?
It's okay, Professor. I think you have a video, but it's not playing yet.
Video?
Yeah.
No, I'm no,
Okay.
I didn't prepare a video. It's
Okay.
it was just but I have many video, but are in VHS, and I'm not able to translate in for computer now, because I have no possibility. I'm not so able.
Yes,
So,
of course.
but if we want, we can. I can find the basilar aneurysm and the other thing, and then we show a video, but another time.
Thank you so much, Professor. We have some questions. First of all, I want to express for from all the Peru Pan American Student Society of Neurosurgery and Neurosciences students that we are so very thankful about this lecture. We want to and we have to learn the history of our mentor's mentor. We have to learn about our big heroes' history. And
Yes.
because we also have to know that they were humans just like us, and we can achieve the same dreams as they had in the past times.
Mhm.
We are so very thankful. We have some questions. First of all, from Fernando Juarez, he said, Doctor, for young trainees, what do you think is the recipe for being like Professor Ernest Niemi and treat patients properly?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, I repeat it. For like maybe an advice for young trainees, what do you think would be the recipe for being like Professor Ernest Niemi and treat patients properly?
To be like Professor Lestemi, you must be always totally dedicated to neurosurgery, and you must like people. Professor Lestemi was also very sensible for the patient. I remember one time he was crying for a case that was not good, and the husband of the woman that was in a bad condition was comforting him because he was really involved emotivamente in that situation. So everything is unique. And it is not easy at all to be like him. He was always seen only at the neurosurgery. For example, in Padova, he did in one day 5 aneurysms. And in the evening, you should take the plane to go back to Helsinki. And the plane was no good because there was snow. So he arrived at 9 o'clock in the evening in the operatory room in Padua, looking, try to find another aneurysm for this evening before I go to sleep. So it was like almost an occupational therapy. He was always thinking to eat. For example, another thing he told me many times, he was in Miami with the Peerless and Drake, and then he arrived to, and they went to do a tour with a boat, a sail boat. He said always the best was the way back at home. So I can go in the operatory room the day after to do an evening and study the. So he's taught all day singing about an evening. And something very something we did together is one day I said that you won't destroy all the aneurysm in the world. It's like a final solution. You know, final solution is like Adolf Eichmann, you know? He was laughing, okay, final solution for aneurysm. No one must stay in the heart alive. So it is difficult. Nobody can have the same number, no. But you can do more things with the same spirit of aneurysm, you know? So you can have the same mentality, the same attitude, the same talent, but I think you can do also only different things now. Except you go to a very unusual country like Africa or Mongolia. So in that case, you can do all the cases like he did in Finland because he did so many cases because in Finland he was almost alone that time. So it is incredible. Where are you in Paraguay? You're in Paraguay now.
We
So
have members from the Pan American Student Society in Paraguay, and Maria Emilia is one of them.
yes. So The other case, like maybe is Atul Goel, because Atul Goel has operated almost everything without a legal problem and without instrument. Without instrument. What you learn now, the difference between before and now, you take a great neurosurgeon like Vinko Dolen. He uses only the scissor, the sucker, and nothing more. And then he can do everything. So now you need a robot, a microscope, everything. So Vinko Dolen still uses the Müller-Wedel for optic surgery. And he do like cavernous serous meningioma with this. But now it's different because there is a pressure for the company, and then the chairman began to, the one that is not so able, anatomy and the hands, but they take more instrument to facilitate the operation. So this is the difference. So the to be like an academic, you can be as a feeling that you like, you do this, you do this, but you must find always a new way to do the things. Because in this case, but the art of aneurysm surgery, especially for posterior circulation aneurysm, must not be loose, because you need for other kind of neurosurgery, like a brainstem tumor. And so if you're a vascular surgeon, you can do also, if you don't do neurosurgery, but you do other things in the same region and area. So to learn anatomy and make a good cadaver lab. But you know, cadaver lab is good until a certain moment, but at the same time is not the same. Because you know, when you're surgeon, there is a moment that you start, for a difficult operation, you're very anxious. And then you find a moment that you are like the owner of the operatory fees. And then you feel better. And then this is the things that give you the pleasure to do this job. So there is a moment that you feel like the owner. This is your, for example, for an alien, your mind, you have any way to escape from me. So then you feel very good. It is a sensation. And I think for you was the same. It feels like so good with this job. It was doing always more and more difficult things.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Perra. We have another question from Maria Emilia. Maria Emilia, are you there?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here. Hi. Thank you so very much for this presentation. I think it was really nice to see the journey throughout the years in neurosurgery, and as well how Dr. Hernus-Niemi influenced your life as a surgeon too. I wanted to ask how mentors can transfer Professor Hernus-Niemi's philosophy in their practices, and how can they transfer that to younger neurosurgeons?
Mm-hmm. Professor Hernus-Niemi was in love with the young people that went in his operatory room, and he was always talking about and giving good advice and how to reach this goal that is to be very good neurosurgeon. And sometimes he found also and discovered people and students they were very able. For example, I remember one neurosurgeon from Turkey, Ayse Karatas, that was very able. She had very good hands, and she was working with him in Finland. and nobody did anything with him, because the problem is that he was always doing something, and the other one were closing, all except 2 or 3 students. And Ugo Andrade was one of these, other one is Isaac Caritas. Yet no difference with the male or female. It's just the thing is most important for me were the interest in the field, in the area of neuroscience. And then I was able to recognize how good was, how talented she had. And in this case, it was working very good for give to these people is a enthusiastic love for this branch. Okay.
Maria Emilia?
Yeah, thank you so much, Doctor. And again, it was a great presentation.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you to you.
Thank you so much, Emilia.
Okay. Is there other question?
Yes, doctor. For the last question, we have Lucero. Lucero, please do your shot.
Thank you very much, Professor Giancarlo. It was a magnificent presentation. My question is, what is the professional, academic, and personal advice that you give to undergraduate students who wants to be a neurosurgeon?
To be a neurosurgeon, the best way is to study direct for neurosurgery. For example, Ernest at the beginning of his career is thought to be cardiac surgeon, but to be cardiac surgeon needed to be general practitioner and the general surgeon. I didn't like a surgery of the stomach. So he went direct to neurosurgery, but he had a great respect for cardiac surgeon, and the note he did in operatory room is the note used in a cardiac surgery. So he was a cardiac surgeon, but he preferred then, also because of the other interest he had was about psychiatry, but psychiatry is not good for the hands. So he leave it and they tried to do brain surgery that involved a little bit psychiatry and the changement of idea in the people after operation. Because neurosurgery is totally different from the different surgery, because you are not only the anatomic area, you have also the emotional area, and then you must respect this area. And for that, it was so clean. It was flying over the brain. It never touched, never discussed, never scratched the brain, because it was in his hands, in his mind. He thought that if he scratched the brain, maybe tomorrow you're not the same than today. So he had a very big respect for the humanity of people that he was operating. So the best way to do neurosurgery is direct neurosurgery. So
Thank you so much, Professor. Well, yeah, it's important for us to learn from the people who are opening the bridges for us, for the new generations. Thank you, Professor Giancarlo Perra. Thank you, Lucero. Thank you, Maria Emilia. Professor, you can give us, please, our last words for closing this session.
Water dissection. Water dissection is something that invented in Helsinki. And Yasajiri was always saying that water dissection is a nonsense. But the truth is that when you open the supraocular space and you put some water inside, then you help the brain to divide without traumatism. And I have tried to do many times, and I have seen him doing water dissection, and I can say that it works. Not always, because as I told you, the Sylvian fissure is a different anatomy. In some case of anatomy, it's not possible, doesn't work. But in a normal Sylvian fissure like this, you put the water, then it open in one moment. And Yasaji was totally against this. He said it's not safe, but it's not true. It's not true. But you can try because in many cases it work very good and perfect and help you to do fast in operation. But you know, in NSM was fast, but not because it was in a hurry. It's fast because he had no dead time. For example, this is a typical operation of NSM. History, the skin, 2 hook, 4 clips for the head, immediately 1 burr hole, and then craniotomy, dura, boom. Just basically side stand, the decoration, and then it was already on the aneurysm. In a middle cerebral aneurysm, also faster, because it was near. It's incredible. You cannot see. I can try to, but there is the 1,000 videos of aneurysm is free on internet. You can choose some video, and next time we can comment, because I've seen many of that operation, and if you send me the video one that I see, and then I show you what he was doing in that moment, because but it's not just the hand; it's a full body surgery. And it was happy with me because I said after the 4-finger surgery, because you use all this, I said we must do the 10-finger surgery, putting two spatula in a finger, very small. So at the end, when you need 1 millimeter more, you arrive with the angle. And then you take in this way. I was very happy. It's impossible. It was just a joke. But if you everything new that's coming your head and you talk with it, it's possible. You can do. So the 10-finger surgery is the incomplete of everything.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Professor. In Cusco, here in Peru, we also had the pleasure to saw many times the water dissection. Professor Choque Velasquez was a co-author of the 1001 neurosurgical videos from Professor Hernes Niemi. So she showed us how it is the water dissection. It's just a practical and efficient technique, you know?
Yes, it's a practical. It's not dangerous. So you can do this. Don't work every time because it depends on the sea. But you must have the sensitivity in the hand. You must not put the water with the high pressure. It's the right pressure. So you must control the water, and then when it's starting to open the fissure, then you can put a little bit more, just enough to do your job. This is because if you arrive there like a boom, like a too rough, it's not good for the brain. This is the
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor. And also, thank you for this opportunity to learn. You know, we have to preserve
thank
our,
you very much
not
for
just
the
doctor, sorry.
opportunity to talk about you and Nadim, because I know him very well since 25 years at least. It's easy, you must not forget. You cannot have the same number and results of anything. But with this technique, you can do different thing and in a new way, in a new street of neurosurgery. So this is very important. So number of, you can do 1,000 basal bifurcation aneurysm, but you never know in which aneurysm there is the new. So you can find. I had the opportunity to operate this patient in grade 5, and then after 5 years, I thought it was dead. I just see the son, let's say, my mother is still alive and talk. So this is important. And it's unusual. I send him the video and of the patient talking, and he say, "Oh my God, I never had in my life, and I'm the one in the world to do this, a case like this." And also Marcos and everyone I've talked. But you know, it's because maybe you don't do operation in this case. I talk about this case with the Fukushima, not Fukushima, the one that is in New Orleans. I don't remember now. And he said, Giancarlo, he said, you had a very great courage to operate this case, this heroic case. We don't do because we are too busy. So there is the opportunity behind the corner. And so this is one of the goals we must explore. So we never know who should. And also is a philosophical theme, this because people say there's a vegetative state. Everybody says it is not a good state for the patient. But I think the patient is okay. The problem is for the people around him that is not okay because he needs so much attention that it's not easy to manage a patient like this. But in this case, that was awake, she told me she had never one day of depression in that state. She was singing music for 4 years. So it's a different, we will see in the future what happens.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Giancarlo.
Okay,
Hope we got
okay,
blessings and kind greetings in Italy. Thank you.
okay. Thank you very much. Then now I go because people is calling me for dinner.
Muy bien, y con eso llegamos al punto final de todo nuestro primer día, ya calentando motores justo para el día de mañana, el día de neurovascular. No sin antes, por favor, permítame compartir mi pantalla. ¿Se puede ver? Ok. Entonces, el día de hoy hicimos una semblanza sobre la vida del profesor Juha Niemi, el neurocirujano más rápido del milenio, ¿no? Dentro de su libro, 1001 videos de neurocirugía, el profesor tiene una sección donde da consejos a los young trainees, jóvenes residentes y personas que quieren dedicarse al área de la neurocirugía. Déjenme, por favor, leerles un poquito de eso. Profesor Niemi dice lo siguiente. Es difícil seleccionar aprendices para convertirse en futuros neurocirujanos. Deberíamos escoger jóvenes con tanta dedicación, determinación y llenos de energía que un día serán mucho mejor de lo que somos ahora. En mi departamento, esta selección se basa principalmente en mi previsión de que un día este joven en particular me sorprenderá con creatividad y actuaciones hábiles. Espero que con el tiempo algunos de estos jóvenes se conviertan en los mejores neurocirujanos del mundo. Deben ser jóvenes porque el periodo de aprendizaje es largo, de hecho toda la vida. Deben ser inteligentes, flexibles. Ellos deben llevarse bien con personas muy diferentes a ellos y al mismo tiempo deben de tener un carácter algo terco y tenaz para cumplir con sus objetivos. De hecho, en contra incluso de los deseos de otras personas, a veces incluso del presidente. Deben poder viajar y dominar los principales idiomas de la comunidad neuroquirúrgica internacional para poder visitar departamentos de todo el mundo, para aprender nuevas ideas y técnicas. Tienen que ser muy trabajadores y tener buenas manos, independientemente del tamaño de sus guantes. Es extremadamente útil estar en buenas condiciones físicas y mentales, realizando algún que otro deporte o pasatiempo que ayuda a recuperarse rápidamente de los muchos fracasos y complicaciones encontrados en el día a día. Deben aprender también a tener un buen sentido del humor saludable, que esto ayuda y es importante contar con el apoyo de la familia o buenos amigos en todas las actividades diarias, tanto en alegrías como en tristezas. El legado del profesor Juha Hernesniemi quedará con nosotros para siempre y es nuestro deber también como pequeños aprendices poder comentarles y poder dar la palabra, ¿no? Sin duda, aquí podemos ver al profesor con muchos neurocirujanos de alta, como el profesor Michael Lotton, el profesor Ike Chirian, el profesor Hernesniemi mostrando a sus fellows cómo es el quirófano dentro del Hospital Universitario de Helsinki, el profesor Hernes Niemi con el doctor Johan Choque, en el momento en que se abrió la unidad de neurocirugía especializada en el Hospital Virgen de la Puerta en Trujillo, ¿no? Pero no solo eso, también tenemos legados académicos. Estos dos libros son de acceso abierto, Hernes Niemi 1001 y más videos de microneurocirugía, hecho por el profesor Hernes Niemi, el profesor Johan Choque Velázquez, el profesor Danila Kosirev y el profesor Perpong Tiarawat, ¿no? Este libro básicamente tiene todo el arsenal de todos los videos de neurocirugía del profesor. Se encuentra totalmente gratuito para todas aquellas personas que quieran buscarlo. De todas maneras, nosotros lo vamos a compartir por el grupo de Telegram, ¿sí? Y justo conversando con el profesor Giancarlo nos propuso también algo muy interesante. Si bien es cierto, estos videos son netamente videos, son sin comentarios, el profesor Giancarlo nos propone quizás en algún día de estos poder juntarnos y poder, él nos comentaría lo que pasa en cada video y por qué hacen qué cosa en cada video, ¿no? Lo cual consideramos que sería un momento de aprendizaje exquisito. También el Helsinki Microneurosurgery Basics and Tricks, hecho por el profesor Martin Leheka, profesor Aquilaxo y como no el profesor Juha Hernesniemi. Este libro de microneurocirugía finlandés tiene básicamente toda la filosofía de simple, limpio y preservando la anatomía normal. Les recomendamos darle un check a a ambos libros. No sin antes también recomendarles este libro tan interesante, Microneurosurgery of Pineal Region Cysts and Tumors, Techniques, Indications and Long-Term Outcomes. Este libro fue hecho por el profesor Choque Velázquez también, cuando pasó el doctorado en el Hospital Universitario de Helsinki, junto al profesor Hernes Niemi. Asimismo, también vamos a hacer un keep in touch, vamos a mantenernos en contacto para cuando salga este último libro sobre microneurocirugía de la región pineal, que es uno de los últimos legados del profesor Hernes Niemi dentro de toda la academia neuroquirúrgica. Queremos comentarles también que la SOPEN tiene un journal, el Journal of Neurosurgery, Neurology and Mental Health. Es un journal open access, peer review, que ayuda a la publicación a jóvenes trainees, a jóvenes estudiantes o residentes que no tienen experiencia en publicación. Nosotros pretendemos bajarnos este gap que tienen las revistas predadoras, ayudando y apoyando en cada paso a las personas que no tienen ningún tipo de experiencia en publicar. Recuerden que en este pueden publicarse todo tipo de casos, series de casos, revisiones, artículos originales, metaanálisis y más. Entonces, ¿quiénes pueden publicar? Estudiantes del área de la salud, profesionales en ciencias de la salud y equipos multidisciplinarios. ¿Tienen más información? Ahí está, sopenoficial@gmail.com. Ayúdennos a hacer de este mundo científico, a hacer de esta academia un lugar mucho más ameno para las personas que recién están empezando. Y cómo no, este sería un journal latinoamericano, un journal que pretende abrirse las puertas desde dentro de Latinoamérica. Ayúdennos a que este sea también un journal de alto impacto en el futuro. Muchas gracias a todos y por favor les dejo con Montserrat Medina Méndez, una de nuestras miembros de México, que nos diga qué tenemos mañana. Montserrat.
Hola, ya estamos por concluir y espero que les haya gustado mucho nuestro primer día en el tercer congreso de Neurotitans. El día de mañana tenemos el módulo de neurocirugía vascular que va a estar a cargo del doctor Férez Chadat con aspectos actuales en el tratamiento quirúrgico de los aneurismas cerebrales. El doctor André Giacomelli en estrategias para el manejo del stroke isquémico. El doctor Johan Choquet con diagnóstico y tratamiento de las malformaciones arteriovenosas. Y por último, el doctor Giuseppe Lancino con Vascular Case Lessons. Va a ser a las 18 Easter Time, sería a las 16 en la Ciudad de México, las 17 en Lima y Bogotá, y las 19 en Buenos Aires, Asunción y La Paz. Nos vemos mañana, pero no te olvides de seguirnos en @sopen con _n_ en Instagram y etiquetarnos. Muchísimas gracias y espero que mañana puedan acompañarnos.
Muchísimas gracias, Montserrat, y muchísimas gracias a todos. Se van a estar pasando los links de asistencia tanto por el Zoom como por el canal de YouTube de la SOPEN para que ustedes puedan amablemente llenarlos. Y bien, amigos, entonces esto ha sido por todo el día de hoy. Consideramos que ha sido un buen inicio, un inicio totalmente académico. La SOPEN se basa en eso, se basa en primero la filosofía de vida, la filosofía de hacer las cosas y seguido recién la academia, ¿no? Entonces nos vemos el día de mañana. Vamos a pasar todos los links, por favor, y tengan una muy buena noche. Hasta luego.